If you've ever believed that family will always have your back, I get it. I used to believe that too. Thought blood meant loyalty, that family dinners and birthday cards meant something real. But what I've learned is this family doesn't always show up when it counts. Sometimes they disappear right when you need them the most. I'm Daniel, 32. I run a small but stable interior design company in Austin, Texas. We're not rich, but we live decently. My wife Emma, our daughter Lily, and me. We've got a cozy 2-bedroom apartment with furniture. I designed myself a fridge that hums too loud and a view of the city that always looks a little better at dusk. It's not glamorous, but it's home. Emma's a preschool teacher. Lily's 8, now funny sharp, always asking questions like, "Why's the sky blue?" Or "Why does Grandpa never come to my birthday?" I don't always have answers for those ones. Now let me tell you about my family. The one I came from, not the one I built. My parents, Martin and Linda, own a local furniture store. They've always tried to look like the kind of people who have it all figured out. Instagram-worthy dinner parties, new model cars, smiles that last just long enough for a photo. Not wealthy in a mansion and private jet way, but they've got enough to fake the lifestyle. They chase appearances like it's a full-time job. Success to them is how many compliments they get on their patio furniture, or whether their wine is French enough to impress the neighbors. Then there's Ryan, my younger brother by 2 years, golden boy. Even as kids, it was obvious I'd get straight A's, and they'd say, "Well, that's expected." Daniel Ryan would bring home a B+, and suddenly it was balloons and cake. When I graduated college, they sent me a text. When Ryan enrolled at a community college down the street, they hosted a backyard soiree with catered snacks and a mini jazz trio. I wish I were exaggerating. I learned early on not to expect much from them, not praise, not help, not even a good job without it being followed by, "But you could do better." So I stopped asking. I moved out as soon as I could, paid for college with loans and 2 part-time jobs, and threw everything I had into my work, designing spaces, building them from the ground up that gave me the kind of satisfaction I never got at home. Then one September afternoon I met Emma. I was working the front end of my first design studio, stacking catalogs and checking if the new inventory had arrived. She walked in looking for a reading chair and walked out 2 hours later with a chair, a coffee date, and my phone number. We talked about books, music, childhood dreams. Hers were light and lovely, mine. Well, I edited the parts about my family. A year later, we got married. 2 years after that, Lily was born. She changed everything. All that anger I held in my chest. It melted the day I held her. She was tiny, warm, full of life. Her laugh sounded like sunlight. And suddenly, I didn't care what my parents thought of me. I had my own little family, now one that made sense. For a while, we were happy, really happy. We had enough, not luxury, but stability. Emma's salary helped cover the day-to-day, and my design business picked up steam. But in all our planning, we'd overlooked one thing: health insurance. It was stupid, I know that now. We were young, healthy juggling bills, and figured we'd wait until the business grew a little more. That mistake came back to punch me square in the gut. It was a cold winter evening, 5 years ago. Lily was 3. She'd been coughing a lot. Nothing dramatic at first. We thought it was just a stubborn cold. But weeks went by, and the cough didn't stop. She started getting tired during playtime, stopped eating as much. One day, while she and Emma were playing in the living room, Lily just collapsed. Mid-laugh. "Mommy, I'm tired." That's all she said. Emma called me in a panic. I flew home from a client meeting, scooped Lily into my arms, and drove straight to the ER. Hours later, a doctor came into the waiting room with a face that didn't match the words I wanted to hear. "We found a congenital lung defect." He said, "It's compressing her airway. She needs surgery soon." Everything around me blurred. My daughter's surgery what? But nothing prepared me for what came next. They walked me down to billing, slid a form across the counter. Estimated cost to $120,000. Do you have insurance? I stood there frozen. No, we didn't. I'd put it off, thinking we'd be fine. But now it wasn't me paying the price. It was Lily. I held Emma's hand as we stared at the numbers. We'll figure it out, I said. We have to. We drained our savings, sold off what we could, called friends, colleagues. Still, we were short, way short. That's when I made a choice. I never thought I would. I drove to my parents' house. It was early evening. Their driveway was packed. I thought, maybe they're having dinner with friends. But as I got closer, I heard live music, laughter glasses clinking, a full-blown party. I stood at the edge of their manicured lawn, my shoes soaked in melted snow, thinking about the hospital bed Lily was in, hooked to monitors, wheezing quietly as she slept. I walked inside, brushing past smiling strangers in designer outfits. The air smelled like roasted duck and wine. My parents had spared no expense for Ryan's wedding celebration. He wasn't even married yet. It was just the engagement party. I spotted my mom near the fireplace laughing with a couple who looked like they'd stepped out of a magazine. Mom, I said, pulling her aside. I need to talk to you. It's important. She frowned, glancing at her champagne glass, annoyed Daniel. Can't it wait? My voice trembled. Lily's sick, really sick. She needs surgery, $120. Lester, we don't have insurance. We've sold everything, but we're still short. Please, I'm not asking for a gift. Just help me get her into surgery. I'll pay you back. She blinked at me, then glanced back at her guests. My dad walked over, frowning. What's going on? Lily needs surgery, I said, and we need help. He crossed his arms. We've already committed our money to Ryan's wedding. We can't just pull out now. I looked at Ryan. He didn't even look back. I'm begging you. I said just something. Anything. They said no. They didn't even ask how Lily was doing. And in that moment, standing in the middle of my parents' perfect house, surrounded by catered smiles and cold eyes, I realized something. Family isn't who shares your blood. Family is who shares your fight. That night I walked away with nothing, no money, no support, not even a word of comfort. But what I didn't know then was that something bigger was already unfolding. Something that would change everything. The days after the party passed in a blur, phone calls, paperwork, hospital hallways that all looked the same. No matter what floor you were on, I didn't sleep, didn't eat much either. I just sat by Lily's bedside, holding her tiny hand in mine, watching the steady rhythm of the monitors and praying the numbers didn't dip. Emma stayed strong, at least on the outside. She spent hours whispering stories into Lily's ear, brushing her hair back with trembling fingers, smiling like she believed everything would be okay. I knew she was scared, so was I, but we didn't talk about it. We couldn't afford to fall apart at the same time. I didn't hear from my parents. Not a single call, not even a text. At first I told myself they were processing. Maybe they'd call the next day. Maybe they were trying to figure things out, but that hope faded fast. 3 days after I stood in their living room and begged for help, my mom posted photos from the engagement party. A full album. She even tagged me. The caption, a perfect night celebrating Ryan and Ava's next chapter. Love, family, gratitude. I stared at the screen in disbelief. My daughter was in a hospital bed fighting to breathe, and my mother was curating Instagram posts like we didn't exist. I didn't respond. I didn't comment. I just stared at that word family and wondered what the hell it was supposed to mean anymore. On the 4th day, Ryan called me. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity or maybe stupidity won out. Daniel, he said, all breezy and casual, like we were old friends catching up. What do you want? There was a pause. Mom and Dad want to have a family meeting. They think we need to talk. Clear the air. I scoffed. Now they want to talk. They're just trying to fix things, man. Don't make this harder than it has to be. My grip on the phone tightened. Ryan, my daughter could have died, and none of you lifted a finger. Now you want to talk. I'm just saying, maybe you overreacted. You caused a bit of a scene, that's all." I laughed sharp, humorless a scene. He sighed. "Look, just come Sunday noon, their place." I hung up without answering. I told Emma about the call that night. "You going to go?" she asked gently. "I don't know," I said. "What's the point?" She reached across the table, placing her hand over mine. "Maybe just see what they have to say. For closure or clarity, whatever you need to move forward." I hated that she was right. So I went. Sunday arrived gray and cold, the kind of weather that matched how I felt walking up the steps to my parents' front door. Nothing had changed. Same polished wood floors, same white couch. No one was allowed to sit on. Same faint scent of jasmine and lavender. My mom always kept diffused in the air. Ryan was already there, lounging on the armrest like he owned the place. Mom sat primly on the edge of the couch, a throw blanket draped over her lap, even though it wasn't cold inside. Dad stood by the fireplace, hands behind his back, staring at the wall like it held the answers. He didn't have the courage to say out loud. Daniel, Mom said, her voice was tight-clipped. "Glad you could make it." I didn't sit. I leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. So I said, "You called this meeting. Let's hear it." Mom cleared her throat. "We were very hurt by how you behaved at the engagement party." I blinked. "You were hurt." Dad finally spoke. "You embarrassed us?" "In front of guests, in front of Ava's family." My jaw tightened. "You mean when I asked for help to save my daughter's life?" Ryan stood hands up in a half-hearted gesture of peace. "Let's not go over old ground. Okay? We can't change the past, but maybe we can find a way forward." "Is that what this is?" I asked an apology. There was silence. My mother pursed her lips. "We just want things to go back to normal." Normal. Like the last week never happened. Like Lily hadn't almost died. Like I hadn't begged on my knees. "I think we have very different definitions of normal," I said. Dad stepped forward. "Daniel, we're not the villains here. We made financial commitments to Ryan's wedding. It's not like we had $120,000 just lying around. You spent $300 on catering, live music, and designer suits. I said you could have helped. You chose not to. Don't twist this," Mom snapped. "You came in the middle of a party. You blindsided us." I let out a slow breath. "You know what's funny? I came in thinking maybe I'd be met with concern. Maybe just a question. Is Lily okay? But none of you asked. Not once. Not at the party. Not now." Again, silence. Then Ryan, arms crossed, said, "So what now? You just want to hold this over us forever. Keep being the victim." That was it. The final snap of the last string holding my patience together. "I'm not the victim," I said. "Lily was. We were. And now I'm done." I turned and walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't scream. I didn't look back. They didn't follow me. Back at home, Lily was coloring by the window. Emma sat on the couch folding laundry. I walked in, kissed them both, and sat down on the floor beside my daughter. "What did Grandpa say?" she asked, not looking up from her drawing. I hesitated, then said softly, "Nothing important." She nodded like she understood more than I'd given her credit for. Emma didn't ask. She just leaned over and laid her head on my shoulder. The next few weeks were quiet. Lily's condition stabilized, and surgery was scheduled thanks to the funds we scraped together. My in-laws stepped in where my family stepped out. Friends helped with groceries. One of my old clients donated anonymously to our fundraiser with a message that just said, "For the little girl who inspired the best nursery design I've ever seen." But what stuck with me most? A cashier at a corner market I barely knew. Just a guy I talked to sometimes about football slipped me $100 from his tips one night. "She's gonna be okay," he said. "I've got a daughter too." Couldn't imagine. That was the moment I really learned what family means. It's not who shares your name. It's who shows up when it matters. And still, there was this ache, this hollow spot inside me that used to be filled by the hope that one day my parents would be different, that maybe someday I'd do something big enough to finally earn their love. But now I understood. It was never about me. It was about their image, their version of success, and I didn't fit in it. So I stopped trying. I never blocked their numbers, but I stopped answering. I never told Lily she couldn't see them, but they never asked. I never sent photos. They never requested updates. We became ghosts in each other's lives. And for the first time, that felt like peace. But peace has a funny way of ending just when you've settled into it. Because years later, long after Lily's surgery, long after we'd rebuilt everything, they came back. Not with love, not with regret, but with a favor to ask. The line I drew in fire. It started with a text. Just 5 words from my mother. "We fixed it for you." At first, I didn't even know what she was talking about. I was at the office, elbows deep in a commercial project for a boutique hotel chain. My biggest contract, yet Emma had taken Lily to the dentist. It was a normal day or so, I thought. Then the second text came from Ryan. "You should thank us. We did what you couldn't." I felt my stomach twist. My hands went cold. I didn't want to believe it. Not again. Not this soon. But deep down I knew. I called Emma. She picked up on the first ring. "Hey," she said softly. "Are you okay? I just got a weird text from my mom. What's going on?" She was quiet for a beat. Then she said it. "They canceled Lily's follow-up surgery." Silence. "What?" "They called the hospital this morning," she said, voice tight. "Pretended to be us. Told the billing office we were moving to another provider, that we'd decided to go with a different surgeon. When I got there to confirm Lily's appointment, it was gone. Wiped from the system." I stood frozen in the middle of my office, surrounded by fabric samples and wall elevation plans that suddenly felt 1,000,000 miles away. "Why would they do that?" I whispered. "I don't know," she said. "But the nurse said your mother used your name, said she had legal authority to make changes." No. I hung up and called the hospital myself, demanded to speak to the admin staff, and they confirmed it. My mother had posed as me and insisted we were pulling out of the surgery. She even faxed a letter on my company's letterhead. I felt the blood drain from my face. She forged my signature. I slammed the phone down, shaking. Why? What the hell were they thinking? I didn't wait to find out. I got in my car and drove straight to their house. They were in the backyard when I arrived. Martin, my father, was grilling salmon. Like this was just another Sunday. Linda was sipping Chardonnay sunglasses on magazine in hand. Ryan was lounging near the pool, with his shirt off, scrolling his phone. None of them looked up when I stormed in through the sliding glass doors. Daniel, Mom said with her usual artificial warmth, "You should have called." "You forged my name," I snapped. "You called the hospital and canceled Lily's surgery." Dad put down the tongs. Ryan finally looked up. "We were trying to protect you," my father said. Protect me? I was shaking now. By sabotaging my daughter's health. "She's fine," Mom said dismissively. "We talked to another doctor. A friend of ours, he said second surgeries are risky, not always necessary. We just wanted you to slow down and think." I laughed, loud, bitter. The kind of laugh that tastes like metal. "You didn't do this for me. You did this because you hate not having control." Ryan chimed in, shrugging. "You are getting obsessed, man. All this, I built it on my own. Energy. You think you're above us now. You forged a legal document," I said through clenched teeth. "You posed as me? That's fraud. That's a crime." Mom rolled her eyes. "Oh, please. It's not like we hurt anyone." "You could have." I barked if Emma hadn't gone in today. Lily's surgery would have been delayed, maybe denied. She needs that procedure to breathe normally. Dad walked toward me, arms folded. "We were just trying to help you realize that you're not infallible. You still need your family. That was it. That was the breaking point. I felt something inside me snap like a string, pulled too tight for too long. The years of favoritism, the cold shoulders, the Instagram-perfect family facade. The day I knelt in front of them while my daughter lay in a hospital bed. It all came flooding back, and this time I didn't swallow it. I let it burn. You know what I said, voice cold and low. You're right. They blinked, cautious, confused. I do need my family, I continued, but you aren't my family anymore. Mom stood up, Daniel. No, I said, raising my voice. I don't want your explanations. I don't want your interference. And I don't want your name anywhere near mine or Lily's again. Dad stepped forward. You're being dramatic. I pulled my wallet from my jacket, took out a folded copy of the hospital confirmation for the rescheduled surgery, held it out. You come near us again, I will press charges. This is my daughter's life, not your ego project. Ryan scoffed. Man, you need to calm down. I turned to him slowly. And you need to get a real job and a spine. He stood face red. You're gonna regret this. No, I said, backing toward the door. What I regret is that I ever thought any of you could change. I turned and walked out, slamming the door behind me. Their voices followed me, rising in volume. Accusations, justifications, fake concern. But I didn't listen. I was already done. That night I sat at the kitchen table with Emma and told her everything. Lily was asleep upstairs, clutching the stuffed animal I'd bought her after her last appointment. Emma listened without interrupting. Then she leaned forward and said, So what now? I looked at her and I knew. No more chances. I said no more calls, no more visits, no more second-guessing myself. I've spent my whole life trying to earn love. That was never real. I opened my laptop, went into my contacts, and deleted every phone number tied to Martin, Linda, and Ryan. I blocked them on every platform. Social email. All of it. Then I opened a blank document. I titled it The Last Conversation. It was time to write the end myself. Peace that feels like silence. I didn't hear from them for 2 weeks after I walked out. 2 full weeks of silence from the people who once felt entitled to weigh in on every choice I made. No phone calls, no texts, no surprise visits. Then the emails started. First from my mother. Subject line. Let's talk, please. It was one long guilt trip dressed up as concern. She wrote about how family can't be erased by one argument and how she had only acted out of love and fear. She insisted she just wanted to protect Lily from a dangerous surgery and accused me of overreacting and isolating myself from those who care. Then came the kicker. You'll regret cutting us off, Daniel. One day when Lily asks where her grandparents are, you won't have a good answer. I stared at the screen, jaw tight. Regret. They didn't get to talk about regret. Not after everything. I didn't reply. 3 days later, Ryan called. I let it ring. He texted after. Nice move turning your own daughter into a weapon. Don't expect sympathy when this bites you in the ass. There it was. The mask slipping off. The carefully curated image of brotherly concern falling apart. And for once I didn't feel shaken. I didn't feel pulled to respond or explain myself. I felt calm. Like I'd been carrying a weight on my shoulders for so long, I didn't even realize it until I'd finally dropped it. Still, that didn't mean it didn't hurt. Emma found me on the balcony that night, staring out at the city. My coffee had gone cold in my hands. You okay? She asked. I nodded slowly. Yeah, just thinking. She came over and sat beside me, wrapping a blanket around both our shoulders. We sat in silence for a long time, watching the lights flicker in the distance. They're not going to stop, I said eventually. They'll twist it, spin it. Say I'm being dramatic. Say I'm turning Lily against them. Emma leaned her head on my shoulder. They can say whatever they want. You know the truth, I know it. And one day Lily will too. That was what got me. Not their cruelty, not even the betrayal. It was knowing that one day Lily might ask me about them, and I'd have to explain. Not with hate, not with blame, but with honesty. The following week, I called the hospital and officially added legal protections to Lily's file. My name and Emma's. As the only authorized contacts, I sent notarized documents, had our lawyer confirm it, and made sure no one else could touch her care again. That wasn't drama. That was defense. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't need to. I started spending more time with my crew at work. My team had seen me through the worst days of my life. Some of them without even knowing it. Javier, my project manager, handed me a cold can of soda one afternoon after a site walkthrough and said, "You good boss." "Better than I've been in years," I said. He grinned. "Figured you're walking lighter." He was right. I wasn't dragging those invisible chains anymore. I wasn't living in the echo of their disappointment. I was just here building something of my own. One evening, Lily sat next to me on the living room floor, coloring a drawing of a princess with an oversized crown and mismatched shoes. Emma was cooking music played softly in the background. "Daddy," Lily asked, not looking up. "Yeah. Why doesn't Grandpa Martin visit?" I paused. Not in fear, just in thought. I looked at her, her tiny face so full of curiosity. She wasn't sad, just wondering. "They made some choices," I said carefully. "Ones that hurt people. And sometimes, when someone keeps hurting you, even if they're family, you have to step away to keep your heart safe." She thought about that for a moment, then nodded. "Okay." She went back to coloring. "Can I give Grandma Janice 2 crowns? She's the best." I smiled. She absolutely deserves 2. There was no dramatic showdown, no storming of offices, no lawsuits. My family didn't go to the press or show up screaming at my door. They just faded, the way people do when you stop feeding their presence with your energy. But I knew they were watching. After the Forbes interview aired, I saw Linda had created a burner Facebook account. No photo, but the same writing style, the same passive-aggressive tone in the comments under the post. Not everything is black and white. Some sons like to paint their parents as villains for attention. I didn't respond. Let them scream into the void. I took Emma and Lily on a trip 2 months later. Just the 3 of us. We went to New Mexico, stayed in a cabin near Taos. Lily collected pine cones like treasures. Emma and I drank coffee on the porch every morning, wrapped in flannel and quiet joy. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours. And I realized something. Peace isn't loud. It's not some grand moment of victory. It's Emma's laughter echoing through pine trees. It's Lily running barefoot through grass. It's knowing that when the world crumbled, the people who mattered didn't ask why or when, they just showed up. Back home, I started writing letters. Not to send just for me. Letters I would never give to Martin or Linda or Ryan. Letters that said everything I had carried for years, but no longer needed to keep inside. You made me feel small, unworthy, replaceable. But I'm not. You could have chosen love. You chose legacy. I'm no longer angry, but I'm done. Every letter I wrote, I folded and slid into a drawer in my home office. Maybe one day I'll burn them. Maybe I won't. Maybe they're not for closure. Maybe they're just proof that I survived them. And now I live differently. I trust slower, I speak more carefully, but I love harder. Because I've learned something rare and unshakable. Family is not who raises you. It's who lifts you when the world breaks your back. And mine. We may be small, but we're solid. We are everything I once wished I had. And I will never, ever let them take that from me again. The house I built from the ashes. 3 years have passed since I cut ties with my parents. And life. It's not just good, it's whole. We moved last fall. Emma, Lily, our new son Caleb, and I, not to a mansion. Not to something flashy. Just a warm 2-story home at the edge of a quiet neighborhood where kids ride scooters in the street and neighbors wave from their porches. I designed every inch of it myself. Not because I had to. My company could have paid 5 architects to do it. but because I wanted to. Every corner of this house tells our story. The breakfast nook that overlooks the backyard, where Lily now reads books to her baby brother, the home office, where I manage a design firm that started in a rented basement, the garden beds out front that Emma tends to on weekends, while Caleb crawls in the grass and Lily runs barefoot under the sun. It's not perfect, but it's ours, and that means everything. There was a time when I thought success would feel loud, like headlines, applause, grand gestures, but it doesn't. It feels like Saturday mornings when Emma brings me coffee before I'm even out of bed. Like Lily asking me to walk her to school, even though she's old enough now to go alone. Like the moment Caleb giggled for the first time, and I realized I didn't have to look over my shoulder for someone's approval. I could just enjoy the sound. That's success. That's peace. My business has grown in ways I never expected. We've opened 2 satellite offices, one in Dallas, another in Denver. I've brought on partners, built mentorship programs, even started a scholarship fund for design students from underrepresented communities. Funny how far you can go when you stop carrying the weight of people who don't believe in you. At work, they call me boss. At home, I'm just dad. And both titles mean the world to me. One afternoon this spring, Lily and I were walking back from the library, her arms full of books, her nose buried in the top one. She looked up suddenly and asked Dad, "Do you ever miss your old family?" I didn't answer right away. We passed a street vendor selling tamales. I bought 2, handed her one. We sat on the curb and ate the sun warming our backs. I used to, I said finally, but not the people they really were. Just the people I hoped they'd be. She nodded slowly, like she understood. But I don't miss them anymore. I added, because I already have my real family. She leaned against my shoulder, her tamal half eaten in her lap. I'm glad it's us, she said. Me too, sweetheart, I whispered. There's something else I've learned. Healing doesn't always come from revenge. Sometimes it comes from letting go. That was the hardest part. Not the confrontation, not the silence that followed. It was the grief. Grieving people who are still alive. People who once smiled at you, taught you to ride a bike, helped you with math homework, until you realized their love was a mirror. Only there, when you reflected what they wanted. Letting go of them meant letting go of the hope they'd change, of the belief that maybe if I just worked harder, they'd see me differently. But the day I finally dropped that weight, I felt light for the first time in my life. I never responded to their final message. It came a year ago, an email from my father, short and strange. We made mistakes. We understand if you don't want us in your life, but we'd like to meet Lily. Just once, no expectations. I stared at it for a long time, thought about responding, but I didn't. Not out of spite, but because I didn't need to. Some doors don't need to be slammed. They just need to stay closed. Instead, I poured my energy into the people who had shown me what family really meant. My in-laws, who live with us now in a cozy suite on the 2nd floor, built from the same gratitude that carried me through those sleepless nights when Lily was fighting to breathe. My colleagues, who still talk about that time, I showed up to the office in yesterday's clothes, eyes red, and said, "We're going to make it," and meant it. Emma, who stood by me when I was broken and never once asked me to be anything other than myself. And my children, who know love, not because it was inherited, but because it was chosen, earned, and protected. The biggest lesson: self-respect is not loud, it's not showy, it doesn't need a mic. It's choosing peace over apology. It's refusing to shrink yourself for people who can't see your worth. It's walking away and never looking back, because the life you're walking into is finally yours. Last week I gave a talk at a local university. A class on entrepreneurship had invited me to speak about resilience. I walked in, looked around at the students wide-eyed, hopeful, and said this: "You're going to fail. You're going to be underestimated, maybe even betrayed. But if you can learn to stand up without waiting for permission, you'll never be powerless again. That's what it all comes down to. Permission. I spent most of my life waiting for it from parents who withheld love like a currency. But now, I don't need it. I don't ask for it, because I know who I am, and I know the people I want by my side. So if you're reading this, wondering whether to keep chasing love from people who never offer it freely, let me save you the pain. Stop. Build your own table. Invite the ones who show up hungry to listen, not just to be served. And let the rest watch from afar as you build a life they never thought you could. Because you don't need their seat. You never did. Story 2. It was supposed to be a reunion. Something nice. A rare evening where we all sat down, ate too much, laughed too loudly. I booked the private dining room at Mateo's. 2 weeks ahead, covered the deposit. Even made sure the vegan and gluten-free folks had options. Friday 7, 4 p.m. per mom's message. I showed up at 7:02, right on time. The parking lot was too quiet. No familiar cars, no Tina tapping a cigarette out of habit, pretending she wasn't a smoker. No cousins laughing by the trunk of someone's hand-me-down Civic. Just nothing. I walked in anyway. Mateo's was busy music playing servers weaving through tables with practiced ease. I found the hostess stand. "Hey, Thompson, party private room." She glanced down at her tablet. "That was last night." I blinked. "What? No, I booked it for tonight, Friday." "Yes, yesterday was Friday." I pulled out my phone. Checked the calendar. Today was Friday. She hesitated, softened. Sir 16. People came in. Big cake place cards, even photos I remember because your mom brought decorations. I didn't argue. I knew. I just didn't want it to be true. I called Mom. She picked up cheerful. "Hi, sweetie. Everything okay?" "Where is everyone?" Pause. "Oh, it was yesterday. We thought you weren't coming. But don't worry, we saved you leftovers." She said it like she'd forgotten my birthday, not excluded me from an event I paid for. I didn't respond, just hung up. 10 minutes later, a text from Tina. "Classic. You missed it, bro. We saved you a roll, though." I walked out without another word. Didn't argue. Didn't send a dramatic message. I just got into my car and stared at the dark reflection in the windshield. This wasn't new. It was just the first time they didn't bother pretending. Growing up, I was the background character. Tina was the golden one, always just having a tough time, and always trying her best. Meanwhile, I paid my own way, kept my head down, got things done. "Got my first job," Mom's response. "Great, now you can help Tina with rent." That help never ended. Rent turned into car payments, which turned into dental work, which turned into bailing her out of one failed degree after another. Every time I questioned it, "Don't be so transactional. We're family. Tina needs us. You're doing fine." Except I wasn't fine. I was barely afloat, and they didn't care. I existed to be mined emotionally, financially, and silently. Once I paid Tina's emergency vet bill $600 wired instantly. That same night, she posted an Instagram story from a rooftop bar. New dress, new nails, champagne. I showed it to Mom. She smirked. "You boys get so petty about money." They didn't even see it. I wasn't being petty, I was bleeding. But nothing hurt, like what I overheard that weekend. 6 months ago, I was home for a few days. Just helped Tina with another $1, $200 emergency. Went downstairs for water and heard them in the living room. Tina. "He's obsessed with being a martyr. It's pathetic." Mom. "I know thinks he's a hero just because he pays for stuff." Dad. "Let him pay. He's not getting married anyway. Might as well be useful." Tina again. "If he disappeared tomorrow, I wouldn't even notice." I didn't go in, just went back to bed. Next morning, pancakes. Like nothing happened. I stopped sending money for 2 weeks. Then the guilt calls started. Tina's behind, she's sensitive. Don't be cruel. I caved, sent the money. Told myself it was easier. Then Mateo's happened. I sat in my car and made a choice. I wasn't going to be the good one anymore. I wasn't going to beg to be noticed. Next morning, I messaged the family group chat. Let's meet at Mom's tonight, 7:00 p.m. I have something for you. Nobody asked what. Of course not. No one ever asked me anything. At 6:58, I walked into the house. They were already there. Tina scrolling on her phone. Dad with a beer. Mom fluffing pillows. Hi, honey, she smiled. We weren't sure if you'd still be upset. I didn't smile back. I put a large envelope on the table. Sat down. What's this? Mom asked. A bill. I said, for the dinner you all enjoyed without me. Dad laughed. You serious? Very. Once I've summed 40, I itemized it. Tina, you're joking. No, I'm done being your ATM. From now on, anything you want from me comes with an invoice. Dad sat up. You need to drop this attitude. We're family. Exactly. And I'm the one you exclude, use an insult when you think I can't hear you. Tina rolled her eyes. No one made you do anything. I stood up. You're right. I chose to. And now I choose to stop. I pulled out a folder, dropped it next to the envelope. Every transaction, every wire, every receipt, and a fraud report I filed yesterday. Mom stiffened. What are you talking about? Someone opened a credit card in my name, used it for a spa package and a new phone. Shipped to this address Tina posted about both claimed they were gifts. Tina's face paled. You're insane. No. I said, I'm done, and I'm protected. They're investigating it now. Mom's voice cracked. You wouldn't. Try me. And then the quiet one, Cousin Luke, spoke up for the first time ever. I'd like to pay my share, he said quietly. They planned to leave you out. I was there. They joked about it. I'm sorry. I looked at him, smiled. Thanks. Then I walked out. They forgot something important. The quiet one doesn't stay quiet forever. And when I spoke, I didn't whisper. I called the cops. Next morning, 8:17 a.m., my phone rang. Private number. I answered. Hi, is this Aaron Blackwell? A voice asked, calm-clipped. Yes. This is Officer Reynolds. We're following up on your fraud report. Our officers are heading to your parents' address this morning to collect statements. You won't need to be there. I thanked him, hung up, and leaned back in the silence. For once, I wasn't the one explaining. This time, they'd have to. According to the angry voicemail I got from Mom, later the police visit wasn't subtle. 2 officers, early morning, asked to speak with everyone. Tina tried to leave. They stopped her. She cracked in under 5 minutes. It wasn't even fraud. She apparently said he always helps. I thought he wouldn't mind. Right. Just a mistake like everything else. They looked at her phone. Found the texts. Tina, use my bro's info. He won't notice. Such a pushover. They took screenshots. Took notes, professional, polite and thorough. Later that day, I got a call from the detective assigned to the case. They had enough to proceed with charges. Asked if I wanted to move forward. I asked for a day. That night, my phone exploded. Missed calls, messages. Mom, we need to talk. It was a mistake. Dad, you're going to ruin your sister's life over this. Tina, you selfish jerk. I'll lose everything. You're doing this to your own family. Funny. None of them cared when I was losing myself. I waited, then called the detective. Asked for a pause on charges, but requested it be noted. If she ever touched anything of mine again, I'd press it immediately. He agreed. Then Mom made her move. Called voice soft. If you really want to fix things, come by. Let's talk face to face. I knew better, but I went. Tina sat on the couch like a martyr. Mom wrung her hands. Dad didn't look up. We just want to heal, Mom said. I asked, And Tina's been under stress. You going to the police? It made things worse. No, I said, Tina did that? I responded. Tina's eyes welled up. I didn't think you'd actually do it. Who reports their own family? Someone who's been used long enough. Mom reached for my hand. Let's make this go away. We'll pay you back. Just don't involve the police. Funny. I said, you didn't offer that before they showed up. Dad looked up, scowling. You think this makes you better? No, I said, just free. And I left. This time for good. A week later, the detective called again. Aaron, we received a payment for the charges anonymous, but it came from a joint account with your parents' names on it. Do you still want to move forward with pressing charges? I paused, took a breath. No. I said, but keep the report open. If anything happens again, I want to move fast. He agreed. We hung up. Just like that. I closed the door on them. No more money, no more calls, no more explaining why I wouldn't bend, just to be mistreated again. I packed up and moved across state lines. 2 weeks later, small town, simple life, and a lease. In my name only. The first weekend in my new apartment, I built my own furniture, played the music I liked, drank coffee in peace. No texts, no guilt. No one asking me for anything. 3 weeks in, I got a letter. No return address. Just my name in clean handwriting. Inside a note. I don't expect you to forgive me, but thank you for doing what I never had the courage to do. Luke. Tucked inside was a check. Half the cost of the Mateo's dinner. He didn't owe me, but he understood. Since then, nothing from the rest of them. Not for my birthday, not for holidays, not even when Dad had surgery. I only found out from a cousin's Facebook post. And you know what? That's fine. Let them stew. Let them make up stories. Let them sit in the mess they created. I'm not Tina's brother anymore. I'm not the fixer. Not the wallet. Not the scapegoat. I'm just me, and that's finally enough. People say family is everything, but I learned something else. Loyalty without respect is just servitude. And now I live on my own terms. No begging, no guilt. I wake up and breathe clean air. I work. I earn, I rest. And when my phone buzzes, I don't flinch. They thought I needed them, that I'd crawl back, that they were the only ones who could love me. They were wrong. When they shut that door on me, they didn't lose a son. They lost the last person who ever truly had their back. And I finally found mine. Story 3. My name is Olivia. I was 16 when my parents told me we were taking a family vacation. No little brother, no work calls, just the three of us. A reset. I wanted to believe them. When they booked tickets to Italy, I actually did. The trip started like a postcard. Rome in the sun. Gelato on every corner. We took photos at the Trevi Fountain. My mom hugged me from behind while Dad held the camera. We smiled like we were healing. Breakfast that morning was at a cafe under the hotel. Dad had espresso. Mom wore red lipstick. I texted my best friend. I think they're really trying. Then my mom said, let's take a walk. Just 15 minutes. I followed without question. But 15 minutes turned into hours, and they never came back. When I asked the hotel about our room, the receptionist blinked. They checked out this morning. Our room was empty. My key card didn't work. My phone was dead. My backpack was gone. My parents had left me. No warning, no note. Except there was one folded in my jacket pocket. You're 16, old enough to survive. No cash, no passport. Alone in a city I barely knew. That first night I slept on a train station bench. The cold bit into my skin. Every passing footstep made me flinch. The next morning hunger hit me harder than fear. By day 3, I was weak and desperate. I tried to steal bread from a bakery window. A hand caught my wrist. Hungry? The woman asked. She was in her 60s, white bun flower on her apron. No judgment, just a quiet stare. "You take bread," she said. "You wash trays until I see myself in them." I nodded. Her name was Marta. She ran the place alone. That night I scrubbed trays until my hands stung. She gave me a mattress upstairs and a blanket. I slept like I hadn't in days. Marta never asked questions. She just handed me a croissant in the morning and said, "Eat then, shape dough." I stayed days, turned into weeks. I didn't have a plan, but for the first time I had a place. Part 2. Becoming Livia. I found an old backpack behind the bakery with a broken laptop inside. I taped the charger back together. After days of coaxing, the screen lit up. I found a free GED prep course I baked during the day and studied at night by a bakery window, stealing Wi-Fi from the cafe next door. Almost a year later I passed. Not perfect, but enough. Then I got curious about business finance. To be specific, I read beginner articles. Then more forums. I borrowed a prepaid Visa card from a supplier and used my first €100 to buy stock. The stock tripled. I split the profit half for Marta's new espresso machine. Half I kept. I didn't tell her. I kept studying. Eventually I registered a small consulting company, Livia Consulting. Livia, a variation of my name. Familiar but hidden. I started helping tourists understand local exchange rates. Then expats. Then students. I taught them to open online accounts. Invest, budget, survive. No fixed fees. Sometimes they paid in dinners or favors. I didn't care. What mattered was they listened. They learned. Marta never asked what I was building. She just handed me coffee in the morning and smiled. When I was 19, I sent money to youth shelters in Ohio. The state I used to call home. I signed each donation anonymously. From someone who survived Emancipation. Then one day, Marta showed me a newspaper, an auction notice foreclosure. The address. My parents' new house. The one they moved into after Rome. "What will you do?" she asked. "But I know," I said. I flew to the U.S. for the first time in years. Registered under my company, Silent Anonymous. Marta raised the paddle at the auction. When the hammer dropped, the house was ours. Not for revenge, for closure. "You walk toward it," Marta said, "not away." I nodded. The hardest part was next. Part 3. Second Light. I met them in a quiet real estate office. My parents didn't recognize me at first. Sunglasses, a suit. No makeup. Just quiet. I took off my glasses. "We've met," I said, "Rome. When I was 16. My mother blinked. My father stared at the table. "We thought if we left," she began, "you'd hate us less. Instead of a goodbye, you gave me nothing." I slid the deed across the table. "The house is mine. You have 30 days. "You can't do this," she whispered. "I can, and I did." They left without a fight. Days later, my name showed up online. Angry post, she stole her parents' house. Money changed her. I didn't reply. I started renovations. The house became Second Light, a home for girls like me. Jaime, 17, kicked out for changing religions. Asha, 18, homeless. After her mom died, Zoe, 15, who didn't speak at first. We had rules. Dinner every Saturday. No phones at the table. Slippers by the door. Choice was sacred. Sleep or talk. I asked each new girl. They brought stories. I gave space. Marta taught them to bake. I taught them to budget. I used consulting income to pay the bills. The rest funded job training and online courses. We weren't perfect, but we didn't need to be. On our 1-year anniversary, the house glowed with string lights. Marta baked, Jaime DJ'd, Zoe laughed. I stood at the door I once hated, watched the girls nap, read hug. On the wall above the stairs. We don't begin in perfect places, but we begin again together. I stepped outside. The air was still. The porch light soft. This wasn't just a house. This was where no one got left behind. And that finally was enough. Marta's bakery became more than shelter. It was soil, and I was the seed in it. Quiet, messy growth, nothing flashy. The mornings were the same. Wake before the sun. Stretch out sore limbs. Tie back hair, hands to the flour. Marta didn't talk much, and I liked that. She moved like someone who'd seen too much noise and chosen peace. We shared that silence, filled it with the rhythm of dough, rising ovens humming, and espresso. The bakery cat purring like a warm engine. When I wasn't baking, I was studying. That busted laptop I'd found near the trash bins it turned on after 3 days of coaxing and a prayer. The screen blinked like a tired eye, but it opened a new world. I perched near the bakery's upstairs window, stealing Wi-Fi from the cafe next door. I signed up for GED prep sites and started learning. Like I had something to prove, not to them, but to myself. Late at night, I solved algebra on pastry boxes, scribbled vocabulary on napkins, rewrote history paragraphs in my head, while washing trays. I wasn't the smartest, but I was relentless. Marta never asked questions. She just watched occasionally, sliding me a warm croissant and saying, "You'll need strength to carry that brain of yours." I passed the GED nearly a year later, walked 2 hours to the testing center and back because I couldn't spare a bus fare. When the results came in, I stood frozen by the tiny kitchen table, the screen glowing in the dark. Passed, not perfect. Not a genius score, but enough to move forward, enough to breathe. That same week, I found an old business magazine. Someone left on a table at the bakery cover story about a local Italian startup scaling globally. The jargon made my head spin, but I kept rereading it. I saw a code for the company's stock buried in the text. I had no idea what it meant, only that people were betting on the future, and I wanted to learn how. Marta had a supplier who sometimes needed help with his son's English. In exchange, he gave me a prepaid Visa. Just $100. I used that to invest in the startup. Didn't expect it to go anywhere. I only wanted to test what I'd learned. 2 weeks later, the stock doubled, then again. When I cashed out, I used half the money to replace the espresso machine at the bakery. It had been sputtering for months. I told Marta it was a gift from a supplier. She didn't believe me, but didn't press. The rest I saved. A spark had lit inside me. Not a need for wealth, but a hunger for independence. Power on my own terms. I learned everything I could. Finance, supply chains, basic contract law. I used YouTube videos with scratchy sound blogs from ex-bankers, turned farmers, forums where strangers posted their failures and recoveries. I copied notes on every spare surface, old parchment paper, used envelopes, napkin corners. Marta noticed. She never said much, but one day as I worked beside her mixing pastry dough, she said, "You don't walk like someone lost anymore. You walk like someone who knows the ground won't break beneath her." I didn't respond, just smiled quietly because she was right. At 19, I registered my first business, Livia Consulting. Named it close to my real name, but different enough to protect me. I began helping tourists with local currency exchanges. Then students, people with no papers, no security. I showed them how to open digital wallets, how to save, how to survive without begging. I never charged much. Sometimes just a home-cooked meal, a thank you card, or enough to keep the lights on upstairs. That was enough. I had been them once, and now I could guide them where no one guided me. I still hadn't told anyone in the States. No social media, no trail. My past stayed silent because it needed to, but every so often I'd send money anonymously. To youth shelters in Ohio, programs for girls like me. I never signed my name, just from someone who survived. Then one morning Marta came into the bakery holding a folded newspaper. She placed it in front of me and pointed. "Foreclosure," she said. I stared at the address. Familiar, like an old wound aching under healed skin. The house they bought after Rome. The one they built their new life in without me. They called it peace. posted photos of remodeled kitchens, lakeside mornings, smiling family portraits with someone missing me. Now that house was being auctioned off, and for the first time, I didn't feel pain. I felt possibility. Marta didn't ask what I planned to do. She didn't need to. I opened my laptop, checked my accounts, and got to work. My name wouldn't appear. I registered under the business. Used legal proxies. Quiet moves. After years of investing, I had enough. Not a fortune, but enough to make this decision mine. I booked my first flight in 4 years Rome to New York, New York to Cincinnati. As the plane descended, I stared out at the clouds and whispered to myself, "This time I'm not running, I'm returning." They moved out quietly, no screaming, no lawsuits, no last-minute pleas. Just a moving truck and a lock change. When it was done, I stood on the porch of the house. I bought the house. They once made their fresh start. Only this time it was mine. Not out of revenge, just balanced life, offering me a thread I'd lost in Rome. Marta was there beside me when we opened the door. She didn't say much, just gave a small nod and ran her hand along the inside wall. "Old bones," she said. "But bones, remember?" The house smelled of stale air and silence. They hadn't taken everything. A picture frame still sat on the mantel. Not one with me in it, just the two of them. I didn't throw it away. I placed it in a box marked past. We didn't waste time. That weekend I brought in contractors, not fancy ones, just local workers, kind people. One was a woman named Tasha, who'd left an abusive home at 17. Another was Miguel, a father of 4 trying to keep his oldest from dropping out. They understood what this house could be. We gutted the heavy curtains, tore up the floors. Where there were dark hallways, we carved out light. Marta chose the paint soft blue and cream. "It should feel like sky," she said, "like a place where nothing presses down." By the 3rd month, Second Light had its first resident, Jada, 16. Her father had kicked her out when he found out she liked girls. She arrived with a plastic bag of clothes and a stare that didn't meet anyone's eyes. We gave her the room with the sunrise window. Then came Samira, 18. Her school counselor found her sleeping in the locker room, and Zoe, 15. So quiet, she only spoke to the cat. We'd adopted, a 3-legged tabby named Beans. I never made them talk, just gave them keys, towels, and time. We ate dinner together on Sundays. Marta always cooked, and the girls helped prep or set the table. Phones stayed off. No one had to speak, but somehow they always did. One story at a time, like puzzle pieces scattered across years. Sometimes they just needed to say something out loud so they could stop carrying it inside. They started calling me Liv, not Olivia, not Ms., not ma'am, just Liv. It felt right. The consulting business grew too. Quietly, I helped undocumented workers start digital side gigs, taught them how to invoice in 2 currencies, made spreadsheets for local vendors. Some paid me, most couldn't. I didn't mind. Every euro I earned was reinvested into Second Light or a job training fund for the girls. One evening, while reviewing documents in the office, Marta walked in. She was holding a crumpled letter. No envelope, just folded paper. "This came today," she said, "from them." I didn't open it right away. Let it sit on the desk unopened for 2 days. When I finally did, it was short. "Olivia, we see now that we made a mistake. If you're willing to talk, we'd like to reconnect. We're sorry, Mom and Dad." I read it once, then again, then I put it away. That night I didn't cry, I didn't rage. I just sat by the window watching the porch light flicker in the breeze. Maybe they meant it, maybe they didn't, but I'd learned something. Marta once said when I asked why she helped me that first day, "People show you who they are when they think you have nothing to give." I didn't need to answer their letter. My life was already the answer. Second light kept growing. We installed a small garden out back, raised beds for herbs and tomatoes. The girls painted the fence themselves. It wasn't perfect. Sometimes there were arguments. Sometimes trauma surfaced when you least expected it. But healing never moves in straight lines. By the 2-year mark, we'd had 13 residents pass through. Some stayed months, some only weeks. But each one left something behind. A book on the shelf, a recipe on the fridge, a note on the mirror that said, "You are not what they did to you." We kept a journal in the common room, a place where anyone could write anonymously. The first page still gives me chills. Thank you for not needing to know who I was, to believe in who I could be. One day, I got a call from a local youth outreach coordinator. She'd heard about Second Light, asked if I could speak at a community event. I hesitated. Public speaking wasn't my thing, but then I remembered that bench in Rome. Cold stone, empty hands, the silence that followed being erased. So I said yes. That night in front of 50 people in a library basement, I told my story, not in full detail. Just enough I talked about being left behind, about survival, about the power of small, consistent care, the kind of love that doesn't need to announce itself. When I finished, the room was silent. Then someone clapped, then another, then all of them. Afterward, a girl around 14 came up to me. She didn't say anything, just hugged me tight. I hugged her back. That was enough. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't reached for that bread, if Marta had turned me away, if I'd let anger be the only thing I carried. But I didn't, and she didn't, and now neither do they. That night I walked through the quiet house, checking windows, turning off lights. Marta was asleep in the sunroom with beans curled on her lap. The girls had left the journal open on the table. A new entry in fresh ink. This place makes me feel like I matter. I don't know if that's love, but maybe it's close. I smiled, closed the book, and whispered into the still air. That's enough. That's everything. The house creaked gently. The wind stirred the garden, and Second Light kept glowing, one quiet life at a time. And me, I no longer wait for closure. I live it. I am no longer what they left behind. I'm what I built from the leaving.